Can an actor truly resurrect a character? Not just return to a role, but breathe new life into it in a way that feels more alive than ever before? Because that's exactly what Michael C. Hall has done. Not only did he return to Dexter Morgan, a role that could have easily been exhausted, overplayed, or even caricatured after 8 intense seasons, he elevated it. And in doing so, he didn't just revive a show, he revived a legacy. Let's explore how Hall's performance in Dexter Resurrection isn't just great acting. It's the emotional spine of a series that dares to go darker, deeper, and more human than ever before. Love staying in the loop on big celebrity comebacks and iconic performances? Hit that subscribe button and don't miss a single update on Hollywood's biggest returns. This one's definitely worth talking about. From the moment Hall steps back on screen, it's as if no time has passed. And yet, everything has changed. He doesn't need a flashy reintroduction or a dramatic monologue to make his presence known. Instead, with just a look, a breath, a subtle shift in posture, he instantly reconnects us with the Dexter we thought we'd lost. But this isn't the Dexter of Season 1, hiding behind polite smiles and lab reports. This is a man haunted by his choices, a man carrying the burden of every life he's taken and every life he's touched. And Hall lives that complexity in every second of screen time. Where lesser actors might try to overcorrect for a time gap with exaggerated mannerisms or nostalgic callbacks, Hall takes a different approach. He trusts the audience to remember. He lets Dexter's silence speak louder than his words. And somehow it's more chilling and more moving than ever before. Not every great performance needs to be loud. In fact, Dexter Resurrection reminds us that the most devastating emotions often come from what's not said. And no one channels that better than Michael C. Hall. His portrayal is a masterclass in restraint. In this revival, there are entire scenes where the camera lingers on Dexter's face for just a beat too long. And instead of cutting away or rushing through dialogue, the show forces us to sit with him. These moments don't just fill space, they build tension. And Hall doesn't waste a single breath. Take, for example, the quiet scenes alone in his cabin, where he prepares his morning routine in complete silence. There's no voiceover, no dramatic score, just the weight of solitude pressing into every corner of the screen. And yet, even in these ordinary movements, boiling coffee, sharpening tools, tidying up, Hall expresses volumes. He's telling us Dexter's story not through words, but through habits, through controlled repetition, through the way his hands lingered just a moment too long over the knife drawer. It's not flashy, but it's unsettlingly precise and deeply human. Then there are the emotional standoffs, scenes where other characters beg for answers, for connection, and Dexter offers them only measured stillness. These aren't blank stares, they're quiet calculations. Hall turns silence into a weapon, into a mirror, into a confession booth. The longer he says nothing, the more we understand. And somehow, the more he reveals. This is where the real genius lies, not in overt emotion, but in the way Hall forces the audience to participate in the performance. We're not just watching Dexter, we're decoding him. We're piecing together his intentions from the subtlest facial twitch, the slow curl of a smirk, the tightening of his jaw when someone gets too close to the truth. And this subtlety doesn't just deepen the character, it changes the way we experience the story. It invites us in, it makes us complicit. We're not just observing the killer anymore, we're feeling the pause before the lie, the guilt behind the mask, the isolation buried beneath the control. Michael C. Hall understands something fundamental about Dexter. The loudest screams are the ones we never hear. And in this revival, it's those quiet moments, the breath before the breakdown, the silence after a lie, that hit the hardest. What makes Dexter Resurrection so uniquely effective isn't just its return to a familiar formula, it's the refinement of that formula. And nowhere is that more apparent than in the way it continues to juggle the show's most volatile mix, dark humor and psychological horror. It's a cocktail that should be impossible to get right. And yet, the revival stirs it smoother than ever before. The series thrives in the moments where discomfort and comedy bleed into each other. Quite literally. Dexter might be dragging a body across the snow-covered woods, and mid-struggle, mutter something under his breath that catches you off guard. Not a punchline, not a wink to the audience, Just a dry, weary observation that could only come from a man who's done this far too many times. You laugh, and then immediately feel uneasy about laughing. That emotional whiplash? That's intentional. What makes this blend work isn't slapstick or over-the-top gore. It's the tone. Every joke is embedded with dread. Every grim moment is laced with tension so thick, the smallest flicker of wit becomes relief. The writing is sharper, tighter, more self-aware, but it never crosses into parody. And Michael C. Hall delivers it all with the kind of restraint that makes the humor land harder because it feels accidental, like the show's trying not to laugh, but can't help itself. But perhaps the most impressive part? The horror never loses its edge. Dexter Resurrection doesn't pull back on its violence, but it also doesn't rely on it to shock. The kills are still precise, still ritualistic, but there's more weight now. Each act of violence feels heavier, more complicated. In this newer, colder version of Dexter's world, nothing comes clean. Not even his humor. There's blood on every joke and remorse behind every smirk. This balancing act elevates the storytelling. It's not just about making the audience squirm or smirk. It's about making us question why we're doing either. Why are we laughing when we know what Dexter's capable of? Why are we rooting for him when we should be recoiling? The show doesn't answer those questions. It lets them hang like bodies in a kill room and dares us to look away. What makes Dexter Resurrection stand out in a sea of reboots and revivals is that it never feels like it's trying to relive the glory days. Instead, it honors them. It doesn't rely on gimmicks or nostalgia to grab attention. It understands that the emotional weight of the original series isn't just in memorable kills or clever monologues. It's in the psychological scars Dexter carries. And in this new chapter, those scars haven't faded. They've deepened. The storytelling here is methodical, patient, and yes, deliberate. The writers clearly know that the audience doesn't want a carbon copy of Season 1. What they give us instead is a narrative that respects where Dexter has been, while forcing him to confront where he's going. It's not about watching him fall back into old habits. It's about seeing whether those habits still define him. Take the setting, for example. We're no longer in sunny Miami, surrounded by palm trees and blood-slides. The new environment reflects Dexter's internal shift, colder, more isolated, and far more introspective. It's symbolic, not just aesthetic. The world around him has changed, and so has he. But that doesn't mean he's left everything behind. There are moments, carefully placed, where the past does seep in. Not as fan service, but as emotional echo. A photo, a voice, a line of dialogue that mirrors a moment from the original series, but twisted through the lens of time, guilt, and distance. These aren't reminders of what Dexter was. They're reminders of what he lost, and what he still fears he could become again. What makes it work is restraint. Dexter Resurrection never shouts, "Remember this?" It simply shows us that the past never really goes away. It haunts the narrative like Harry once haunted Dexter's conscience. Not visible to everyone, but always present, always influencing his choices. And through it all, Michael C. Hall navigates this emotional terrain with surgical precision. He doesn't wink at the camera or lean into meta-commentary. He plays Dexter like a man who remembers every wrong turn and who's terrified of repeating even one. The revival respects our intelligence. It trusts that we remember the heartbreak, the betrayals, the quiet, devastating moments. And it uses that trust to build something new, something worthy. When Dexter Resurrection begins, it doesn't treat us to a triumphant return. There's no dramatic montage, no wink at the camera saying, "Miss me?" Instead, we find Dexter Morgan in quiet exile, living under a false name in a small town far removed from Miami's blood-slick crime scenes. He's not chasing criminals anymore. He's selling fish and laying low, trying to suppress what he once called his dark passenger. And this is where the story redefines him. This isn't the same Dexter who spent his nights wielding knives under moonlight. This is a man actively trying to cage his impulses. For the first time, we see him genuinely struggling with the idea of peace, not just hiding, wrestling. The story gives us a Dexter who isn't bored by the absence of blood, but disturbed by how badly he still wants it. That inner conflict isn't just written in the script, it's etched into Hall's performance. Every choice Dexter makes feels like it could tip him off the edge. And yet, It's not just about reformation. The beauty of resurrection lies in how it refuses to offer Dexter easy redemption. When the murders begin again, and Dexter picks up the blade, it's not a heroic return, it's a relapse. The story doesn't celebrate his skills, it interrogates them. It challenges the idea that justice through Dexter's code is still justice at all. What once felt methodical and righteous now feels messier, more personal, more desperate. What makes this evolution so compelling is how the series doesn't strip away who Dexter was. It builds on it. We still see the signature rituals, the plastic wrap, the careful stalking, but each step is heavier now, not with guilt, but with awareness. Dexter knows the world has changed. The people he once loved are gone. The code he once followed may not be enough. And the story forces him, and us, to question if he's still a necessary evil, or just evil. And then there's the introduction of Harrison, his son, not just as a character, but as a mirror. Harrison doesn't just represent Dexter's past, he represents the future Dexter may never be worthy of. Their relationship becomes the emotional heartbeat of the revival, and a major shift in Dexter's narrative arc. The story dares to ask, can a man built on secrets and shadows become the kind of father who lives in the light? This isn't a redemption story. It's a reckoning, and Michael C. Hall embraces that reckoning with nuance, restraint, and raw emotion. The result? A role that feels reborn, not by erasing the past, but by finally confronting it. Let's be honest, without Michael C. Hall, Dexter Resurrection doesn't work. Period. He is the emotional center, the moral gray area, the link between past and present, and the driving force behind every scene that hits you in the gut. And yet, he makes it look effortless. He slips into this character like it's a second skin, not because it's easy, but because it's earned. And it's that sense of earned gravitas that makes this revival not just watchable, but necessary. It gives Dexter a chance to confront who he really is. And it gives us, the audience, a chance to finally say goodbye. Or maybe hello again. In the end, Dexter Resurrection succeeds not because it reinvents the wheel, but because it returns to the heart of what made the original series so compelling. A character who is as terrifying as he is tender, as monstrous as he is meaningful. And that heart, that pulse, it's Michael C. Hall. He's not just acting, he's resurrecting. And because of that, Dexter Morgan doesn't just return, he lives again, in all his brutal, brilliant, broken glory. So if you haven't watched the revival yet, don't do it just for the plot. Do it to witness one of television's greatest character studies, brought back to life by an actor who refuses to let his legacy die quietly. And that's worth every second of your time. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next breakdown. Got thoughts on Michael C. Hall's return? Drop them in the comments. We're reading every one. And hey, if you want more content like this, including character studies, behind-the-scenes insights, and storytelling analysis, check out the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching, and remember, just because he's smiling doesn't mean you're safe.